of ICTA, which is the apex government organization. This talk doesn't represent the ICTA. You notice there are no ICTA logos here because I have just taken over the responsibilities at ICTA. Towards the end of the talk, there are some government related things that I will talk about, but most of this was developed as part of my research organization called Learn Asia. And some of the work that we did here in relation to the northern province. And actually part of that reason, I'm bringing that up because some of the data could be updated by 1 year. I will get it updated with my assistance as soon as I go back. So let's begin not from IT but from our resource. The main resource for development is people. Right? It's not things under the ground or very simple. It's really people. And this is especially true for things like ICTs. We really have to look at the labor force. We have to look at where they are, what their competencies are, because in the IT sector, that is what we do. We capitalize on the brain power of the people that we have. So if you look at this, I have taken, now that is the northern province, right? I have taken some comparators, Colombo, Gampaha, Galuthara, they're generally the leading provinces in the economy. And I have also taken Norelia for a specific reason. Now look at the labor force participation. That is how many of the people participate in the labor force. Now you take the female group. The highest number is found in Norelia, and you understand why. Plantation sector. But if you look at the northern province, the women's participation is quite low other than in Vaunia. Country as a whole, it is 36%. Right? Only Vaunia is above that average. If you look at even Colombo and so on, even they are below the average. Right? Now, is this common? Is this normal to have this kind of low participation of women in the workforce? So I give you some comparators. Ghana, Indonesia. Now Indonesia and Sri Lanka, pretty much if you look at GDP per capita, sometimes they are ahead, sometimes we are ahead. We are very close, right? Ghana is very similar to Sri Lanka in many aspects, including population. Now if you look at all these places, you will see that the women's labor participation is significantly low in Sri Lanka, right, over the years. So Ghana, for example, 67% of the women are in the formal workforce. 71% of males are in the formal workforce. In our case, 76% males, 35% female. Now it doesn't mean the women are not working. It means that they are not in the formal labor force. They are not looking for jobs. They are in their home, right? So you can see there is some unusual phenomenon going on here. Now, unemployment figures are calculated on the basis of those looking for work or in the workforce. If you are not looking for work and if you are staying outside, like that 65% of the women, 64% of the women, they are not counted for calculating the labor force, right? So the labor force, the base is those in the market for work. Now you can see that our northern province is got a higher unemployment rate than the rest of the country, right? Now this can be updated. I want to apologize to you. My new duties in the government are such that it's really, I barely get any sleep these days. So I will get my assistant to update it and get it put on a website or sent to Mr. Niranjan if anybody wants to see the most current numbers. But I don't think the numbers will change that much from 1 year to another, right? But labor force numbers, they are updated very frequently. So you can see that even here the percentage of unemployment in the northern province is higher. So whatever, and Mana and Jaffna, right? 7.1% and Jaffna 7%. Now we go to the critical age group, right? We break it down by age. 15 to 24 is 4 times the national rate, right? So while 4%, even in the United States it's about 4%. So that's not a bad number. In economic terms, you can never get to 0. You're around 3, 4, that is almost full employment, right? But I'm trying to qualify this by saying there's a significant number who are not participating. The minute they start participating, your unemployment rate will go up. And the other issue is, look at this age group problem. These people, the 15 to 24 and the 25 to 29 people, they have a higher rate. What does that mean? It means that they are waiting for the right job. They have the cushion. They have the parents. They stay at home. They won't take the jobs that are on offer. They are waiting for the right kind of job. It's only by the time they're 28, 29 that they get completely disappointed. And they settle for something at that point. Right? You can also see that the more education you have, the more unemployment you have. Which is counterintuitive. We think we get educated in order to get jobs. But here, the more educated you are, the less jobs you have, the more unemployed you have. Again, it goes back to that story. So, what is happening is that our economy is not producing the kinds of jobs that our young people want. I was once in Colombo and I saw this line down Havelock Road and I couldn't understand what it was. I went around asking people, why are these people standing in the middle of the night on Havelock Road? They are standing in line to take some examination to go to Korea. So they are suffering, they are sacrificing. In the middle of the night, they are standing in line to do an exam to go to Korea. So the Korea job is what they want, not the jobs that we have on offer in this country, right? So I think you have all heard the anecdotes about how many applications are received for a government job, a gardener's job or some lowly job in government. How many people apply, right? So there is a mismatch between what we can offer in a way that is sustainable for the economy and what we actually offer. Something is wrong with the way we treat women. Very clearly, there are many things wrong with the way we treat women. They can't go in a bus, they are not treated properly. We have some problems with women's participation as well. And of course, the education unemployability problems suggest there's something wrong with the education system as well. And whatever problems we have in the country are somewhat aggravated in the northern province. So that is sort of where I begin. In terms of economic development, we have to start from people rather than from technology or various other things. Now, when we talk about ICTs these days, this is from Singapore, right? All these countries are no longer coming up with ICT policies, they're coming up with digital policies. In the digital policy, you don't think about increasing computers or increasing computer literacy or things like that. You talk about that maybe as supporting, enabling factors. But the main thing is you take particular industries and you say how can these industries be advanced using the potential of ICTs. So for example, in the Singapore document, they don't have too much on agriculture, but they talk about how ICTs can be deployed to improve the productivity and the competitiveness of the retail industry. Now many of you who have gone to Singapore know that that is basically a big shopping center, right? It's designed around shopping. So retail is very big for them. But in other countries, they focus on agriculture, on healthcare, various things. So we have, this use of the word digitalization, instead of saying informatization and so on, now we are using this word digitalization, is when we are looking at in-depth going into an industry, going into a sector and improving the productivity using ICTs rather than thinking of ICT as a separate silo, as a separate container. And now in Sri Lanka, I am happy to report to you that we are also going completely in this direction. As the talk ends, I will talk about Sri Lanka's digital strategies in agriculture and so on. So we have to look at the real numbers, right? Now I'm showing you, I hope you can see Sri Lanka's labor force divided by sectors. The three main sectors: manufacturing, agriculture and services. So for Sri Lanka as a whole, 46.5% of our workers are in the service sector, and only 27% are in agriculture. Next to that, I have provided you with the data for the northern province. Jaffna, 40.4% are in services, 40.5%, which is one of the highest, well, it's not the highest for this area. Yeah, it is high. It is high even for the north. 40.5% are in agriculture, right? Vaunia has got some manufacturing, 45.8, that grey bar, right? So first we have Sri Lanka, then we have Jaffna, we have 40.5 in agriculture, 19% in manufacturing, 40.4 in services. Then we move to Mana, 27% in agriculture, 25% in manufacturing, 47.6 in services. Vaunia, 24% in agriculture, 29.4 in manufacturing and 45.8 in services. Mullaitivu, 27.8 in agriculture, 24.8 in manufacturing, 47.3 in services. Kilinochchi, 25% in agriculture, 23% in manufacturing, 51.8 in services, right? Now, the question is that despite the fact that we have 27%, now I am on many television talk shows and so on, and some minister or somebody will say, Sri Lanka is a prominently agricultural country. We are fundamentally an agricultural country. And I say, oh, because only 27% of our people are in agriculture. 7% of our economy is in agriculture. 7%, right? Our telecom sector is mostly bigger than the paddy sector, right? In terms of contribution to the economy, to the GDP, right? So when we have 27% of the population producing 7% of the GDP, we have a problem of productivity, right? In the United States and places like that, major agricultural exporters, right? The world's largest agricultural exporter is the United States. Only about 3% of their population are engaged in agriculture, right? So the issue is that we have unproductive and therefore non-remunerative and not very enjoyable work in agriculture. That is the reality. Everybody who says we must have more people in agriculture, I ask them, do you send their children to the agriculture sector? No. Our children are in nice air-conditioned rooms, doing service sector jobs or government jobs. We don't want our children to go to do agriculture. We want somebody else's children to do agriculture. So my argument is, agriculture is important, of course. Let's make agriculture work more rewarding and productive. The only way we can do that is by creating some opportunities for those people to do other work, because they are not willing to do agricultural work, the next generation. Those who are willing should be given very attractive opportunities in high value agriculture, right? So that is the challenge. Now with high value agriculture, I think we have a real possibility with ICTs, right? High value agriculture means the use of ICTs. Can you click that? So, here is some work that is being done in Sri Lanka. Now, a lot of people don't know that we are taking, say, things like Karavila, snake goat, patola, Karavila. Yeah? These things are being exported to Europe of all places, not nearby places. They are being put in containers, shipped in airplanes to Europe, right? Very lucrative business. And this is increasing very rapidly. If you look at a time series, these things are increasing in value. They start from a small base, but they're increasing in value. However, in order to supply Europe, we have to get container loads, right? We have to get big quantities. We have difficulty getting these quantities. We have the markets, we have the contracts, but we have difficulty getting the quantities, right? We also have a problem with maintaining standards. There is something called the Euro Gap. Good agricultural practices. These are very detailed documents. I have talked to these farmers, I have been on the fields and looked at the record keeping requirements that they have. They have to say where they store the chemicals. They have to say where they store the pesticides. They have to record when these things are applied. So this is now best done actually using ICTs, computers. These our fellows are still using pen and paper, but this is best done using information communication technologies. There are requirements that they have to have a fence around the land, a screen to prevent various things from coming in. So very complex. You have to be educated to do this. Not an uneducated farmer cannot do this. And say one person that I was talking to, he had been engaged in some kind of mining. He was a small businessman, an industrialist. And he said, that was not very interesting. I decided to go into this because the returns are also very high. The risks are high, the returns are also very high. So we have been working with, and anyway, if we don't meet the standards, what happens is that in Europe, when the container comes in, they do a random check, and if you find one problem, excess residue chemicals, if you find one insect that is not supposed to be there, the whole container is rejected, it is incinerated. You do it more than once, you will be blacklisted for 6 months. You do it more than that, you will be blacklisted forever. So our exporters are very concerned about this. They are putting a lot of resources to educate farmers, to develop technologies and so on. So we have worked with them, tested smartphone apps and so on in order to do this. So because the knowledge is in the government, we have many people with PhDs and this kind of scientific training. And we are now trying to get that knowledge to the farmers when they want it, where they want it, with the various technological capabilities. So we are, simple things like being able to take a picture of something. They are doing Skype conferences with the consultants because these are high value farmers. They will spend money on technology, they will spend money on telephone calls. They have the resources, they want that real good advice. So my organization will be coming to Jaffna with some funding from the Neelam Tiruchellam Fund, Trust Fund. We'll be coming here, my colleague Sudharan Perampalam will be here maybe next month to do some work where we'll bring some of the export, the objective is to connect Jaffna farmers to the export value chains. So that the document, the slide on the other side is all kinds of reasons why we got rejected, right? Sri Lankan produce that got rejected. These are on the web. The reasons for rejection are given. So on the agriculture side, it's not working. Okay. Now let's look at manufacturing, right? I'm coming to services. That is the main star of the show, but I'm coming slowly. So even in agriculture, there are things that we can do, and I will talk about that right at the end. With manufacturing, there are many people who say we have missed that bus. China did manufacturing, became the manufacturer of the world. Countries like us, which are not low cost labor places, and our energy is the most expensive in the entire region. Therefore, we have missed the manufacturing bus. We can't do it. But we can do certain kinds of high value manufacturing. As you may have heard, there's a man called Rohan Samarajiva who is exporting, who has been exporting the sensors used in airbags, and he is exporting into Mexico. He has actually got factories that he owns in Mexico to be part of the auto value chain. So his equipment, so can you imagine this, right? Somebody buys a Ford car, he hasn't made the car. The Ford car has got safety airbags, he didn't make the airbags. He has made the sensors that activate the airbag when the car is hitting some object at a high speed. That sensor has got extraordinarily high reliability requirements. That is manufactured in this country, right? He participates in this global production network using that part, and it is very high value. So high value that he is thinking of running for president now, because he can self-finance a campaign. He has so much money, right? So these kinds of things are needed. If now his factory is in Biagam. Why are these factories in Biagam? Because Sri Lanka's logistics and transportation networks are bad. They put them near the airport and the port. So if you are far from the airport and the port, good luck to you, right? You are left out of these lucrative kinds of things because our networks are not good. So one of the things that the government is thinking about in the digital strategy is how we can address some of these logistics problems. So here are the solutions that the government is coming up with. They will be proposing, this is very difficult, now I get back to my ICTA role. We will be announcing this policy within, I would say, about 3 or 4 weeks. All the preliminary work, consultations have been done. There's 1 or 2 things to be done. In this particular case, multiple government organizations are involved. So I have got a meeting on the 6th where I'm trying to bring everybody together to agree on who is the lead, who is supporting, who has which role in this activity. But the whole idea is that we will have logistics chains. We will have one in Jaffna. We will have about 7 or 9 throughout the country. And then you hand over to them. It's sort of like handing over to Federal Express or something, and they look after it from there. You will be able to track your shipment, how it travels, using ICTs. You can get it on your smartphone. You can do all that, but it will go, you know that your deadlines are being met, your safety requirements are being met, nobody is interfering with your material, you will be given all those assurances. We will have a digital free zone in Katnayaka so that these things can go. Now one of the things that I'm looking at is, not only these high value manufacturing items, but is it possible also to look at some of the agricultural produce in this way, very, very high value agricultural produce. Can we also use the improved logistics to get that shipped out at low cost? In all these things, as you can see, we have to simplify procedures. We have to work with customs, we have to reduce the number of forms that have to be filled up. Some of these forms, they are so complicated, filled in triplicate, quadruplicate, and nobody knows why. So we have to now work with these people and simplify these procedures. This is all work that will be undertaken in the next few months. So now we come to the main actor, the services, because we know services are where ICTs belong. Now there is a very colloquial description of services that I used to use in my teaching. It is about tradable services, things you can buy and sell, but if you drop them on your toes, they will not hurt you. Things you drop on your toes, they will hurt you. Services, you drop on your toes, they won't hurt you. So a service is like an insurance policy. A service is a warranty, right? These are things that are intangible. They have value, they can be bought, they can be sold, but they will not hurt you if you drop them on your toes. So this is a very residual category. Things, we know what agriculture is, we know what manufacturing is, what is left over, we just dump into services. So the corner kade man who is selling some pan or something like that, he is also in the services business. And somebody who is sweeping the streets is also in the services business. And somebody who is doing high-end computing and software development and architect is also in the service. It's a residual, heterogeneous category. So we shouldn't say, oh, we must be very proud that we have 51% services. No, you can have 51% of very low-paying people working in services, right? What you must have is high-value, tradable services. Then you can be proud that your country is doing well. But just because you have people in the service sector, you should not be proud. So we have a question. Our challenge is, how do we increase this percentage of high value service people? Now what I have given you again is that same chart about the way our current labor force in the northern province is distributed. So we must think that in this sector, we might have a solution to the problem of women sitting out the labor market, right? Having more flexible opportunities in the service sector. For example, women are very good at face-to-face human interactions. We are very crude people, these men. Yeah, women can be very kind and friendly and so on. So they can take a lot of those. You can see in the healthcare industry and so on, there are teachers, those kinds of roles they can take. But also, if we can devise ways where we take people out of the 8-hour, 9 to 5 rigid workforce arrangements, then we might be able to get more of the brain power. Now, I was told that for the last so many years, in the Jaffna Computer Science Department, all the first classes have been monopolized by the women. Am I correct, sir?
Yes.
All the first classes have been for women, right? But then when I go to talk to the chamber and I talk to all the business people, I can't find a single woman, right? So this discrepancy we must try to address. Obviously, it's not a question of brains. Perhaps they have more intelligence than the men. But it is in terms of the rough and tumble of business, of taking leadership positions, of taking the front seats, that maybe there are some issues. Maybe it is about managing family and time and work demands. So for example, in my organization, we have every which variety of flexibility. People can work from home, they can participate using Skype, they can come to work when they want. All kinds of flexibilities have been given, and we are a majority woman organization. My organization, Learn Asia, because of that flexibility. Otherwise, we would have lost all these good people. I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it for my organization. Because if I keep them, I benefit. If I lose them, I am the loser, right? So we think that in this sector, we might be able to do something good. Now, let's look at the IT sector per se. What people understand as IT industry, high-end IT. WSO2, the picture on this side, is on Stanley Road, the big building, 4 or 5 floors building, where YAL IT hub is also present. They have got an incubator and community space also being developed there. So these people have been there for 2-3 years, right? In Colombo, you know, we actually have parties when we manage to get somebody from WSO2. In my organization, we do data analytics and we hire somebody from WSO2. We think it's a cause for celebration because it is the leading IT company in Sri Lanka. It's got the highest profile, right? Highest salaries, highest profile, highest everything, greatest prestige. So occasionally we have taken somebody, that is because we are a research organization, and these people think that by working with us, they can get to a good PhD program. And I am also friends with WSO2. I say, you know, don't get upset, I will take 1 or 2 of your people. You have more than 100, you can surely spare 1 or 2 people for me. So I take 1 or 2 people from them. But these are very prestigious company and they have come here. But they are not expanding. They didn't say they are going to be very big because they are an elite company. But we have to think about the fact that they came here, but now how to hold them is a challenge. Then Microimage is another company that is active all over the world. Today I was being interviewed on TV about how are we dealing with globalization. I say, when I go to some obscure place like Samoa, I find Sri Lankan IT companies. Samoa, most people don't know where Samoa is, but our fellows are selling in Samoa, right? And this is the IT companies are active in all these places. So Microimage is very active in the Pacific. This I think is one of the most prominent companies in the northern province, in Vaunia, extreme SEO. What's his name? Sharanyan, the gentleman in the middle. You can see a young man who has started a company, just maybe 100 employees, at least 100 employees. And people are talking to me from Australia about this company, right? So we have something going on, but we need more. How do we do more is the question. So the issue in the north, now I'm going to these are my last 2 or 3 slides, right? the issue in the north is that the IT sector is not one discrete component, right? It's an ecosystem. So just to give you one example, we do not, right? My organization, when we hire computer science people, we do not actually expect them to have all the skills that we need. We actually set apart time for them to take Coursera and those online courses and to spend time getting the skills that we need. We look for certain basics, and even more we look for the attitude of learning that they have. But we believe that the technology is changing so rapidly that we don't think the universities have been able to give it to them, right? So for that kind of reason, we place, not my organization only, but other companies, place a lot of emphasis on internships. Take students for 6 months, get a good understanding of what their attitudes are, attitude to work, attitude to learning, then they give them a job offer. Because interviews are a very inexact method of assessing a person. Certificates are almost useless. I don't know whether you know, but Google no longer uses certificates or class position or whether you have a first class. Those things are not important to Google now. They do their own testing and take the people they want, right? The world's leading IT company doesn't care about degree certificates now, right? So in this situation, it is very important to have a strong relationship with companies. For your IT programs to succeed, you must be with cutting edge companies. Now if the cutting edge companies are not here, they are in Colombo, they are outside Colombo, how are you going to get that relationship? If your students are not willing to go and do internships outside the Jaffna Peninsula, particularly some of the female students, their parents may not be willing to let them go. How are you going to give them that positioning that they can take these kinds of jobs, right? I have taken one woman student from Katubedda, from University of Moratuwa, from Jaffna. She seems to have jumped all those barriers, and she's just started work 2 weeks ago with my organization in data analytics, right? So there are people who get through this, but some percentage does not go. So the ecosystem is, if you don't have companies, difficult to get the cutting edge knowledge in the universities. If you don't have universities producing enough people of enough quality, will the companies come? Chicken and egg problem. Which one comes first? That is what the ecosystem problem really is. So we need large firms to come here so that you have some scale problems. Can we have these isolated firms sitting in one in Stanley Road and another somewhere else and another somewhere else? Should you have some agglomeration effects, like in the Bay Area, like in Seattle, right? Wherever, now I have a daughter who was spent 5-6 years in the Bay Area. She knows everybody and everybody. There's a lot of exchange of ideas. Even her boyfriend came from, her husband came from one of these companies. So they hang out with each other. They don't like to associate with old people like us. They like to associate with people like them. So can we give them that environment here in Jaffna? That is a challenge that we face, right? Can we give them the coffee houses and the entertainment options where they can go and have, in Bangalore, I think you know, many of you know the situation in Bangalore. Bangalore got a very vibrant social life. And then the people outside Bangalore started hitting back at Bangalore and say the bars must close at this time and this rule must be imposed and that rule must be imposed. So Bangalore became a less attractive place, right? I'm not saying it's about giving up all your culture, but allow people to have some fun, some entertainment. That is also necessary for this. I have published, even in Sri Lanka, I published using material from Singapore. When Singapore was going to attract these kinds of people, how they opened up Clarke Quay, how they opened up certain entertainment opportunities. Because that is also necessary for these creative people to do their work. Creative people are not people who just sit and just, sit in a corner and do this stuff. They also like to socialize a little. So these kinds of things have to be done. Now connectivity, when I was first looking at this problem in 2003, when I was in the government, I actually came to Gilinochi to discuss this matter with the LTT administration. I came on behalf of the government to discuss this matter, how to bring fiber up to Jaffna. I wanted to bring fiber up the A9, and that didn't happen, but now we have fiber optic cables here. Now we have connectivity. I have been using the internet here. It could be better, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Much improved, right? So that kind of technology we have improved. But you know, when I was negotiating in 2002, 2003, when I came back, the Prime Minister's job to me was, why are all these BPO companies going to Hyderabad and Karnataka? Why can't they come here? You get them here. That was the instruction I had. I get them here. So I looked at some telecom problems we had and we solved those. And then now I'm negotiating with HSBC, right? We didn't have any of these in Sri Lanka. I'm negotiating with HSBC. HSBC said, look, we have got a board decision that our next one for disaster recovery purposes has to be outside India. You all are going to get it even if you're high cost, right? But give me land and give me certain other requirements. So I said, oh yes, I've got land in Malawi. I have IT zone in Malawi. I'll give you land there, very cheap, almost nothing. No, we don't want to go to Malawi, too far. Too much traffic. We want something close to Colombo. So we gave them the Parliament Road bill land, which was controversial. It became part of the election also. Arjuna Ranatunga made a big fuss about it in the 2004-2005 elections. That land. So why? Because they don't want to go too far from the airport. Now can you imagine? You have given, some foreign company has given work to a software company here. They want to pay a lightning visit, unannounced visit to this place to see what the working conditions are, to see how things are being done. Are they employing children? No, you don't employ children for software, but something, right? You want to come and examine this place. He has to get off from an airplane, spend 6.5 hours on a car. By the time he comes here, he's I need to sleep, and then by the time he goes back, that is not good, right? He wants something more accessible. Now Malawi is ideally positioned now with the highway connecting. We can have a ramp down and we can now sell Malawi in a more attractive package, right? Orion City, Mr. Jnanam's, Jeevan Jnanam's operation is clean, direct line from the airport, if you think about it. Straight from the highway, you come to Damatagoda and there's Orion City, right? So this is the kind of thing they're looking for. So we have to now address the problem of the airport, right? I'm working for the government, I know, but I will bring these issues up, that we need to address these problems. What else? How do we bring more women into the equation? Because you must remember, we all talk about, we have people, when I began by talking about unemployment. But we cannot compete with Philippines and India on one volume. So one of the largest companies that we have, IT companies that we have, is called PSS, Educational Testing Company. 800 software people are working there now, 800. At one point, they got a request saying, we are willing to invest in Sri Lanka, the work coming out of Sri Lanka is good. Okay, you're approved for 2,400. Our fellow said, we can't do 2,400. You cannot find 2,400. You can't go from where you are to that size in this country. Then we'll have to go to India. In India, you tell somebody go to 2,400, they say, what? You want 24,000? I'll give you 25,000. Because they have the numbers, the volumes they can get. We don't have volume, right? We are a small country. Our population is small, right? Even with unemployment. So we can't get our numbers up without getting the women into the workforce, right? So these are the kinds of issues that we have to think about. One more. This, I believe, is the last one. And I'm actually posing the most controversial issues here. So the question is, we also need investment, right? While these are relatively, we like startups, and ICTA has been promoting startups. We like it when first generation, most of the people in the sector, they are first generation, they had nothing and they have built up their businesses. I'm sure Sharan, who's that guy? Sharanyan, first generation. Yes. Everybody is first generation and just build up their businesses. But to really scale, really get the numbers up, we actually need foreign companies coming in, like PSS, like London Stock Exchange, right? There we had local companies and the foreign company comes and buys them over. Pumps money, big money coming in. Then you can scale up, right? So what can we do to attract these people? Can we give them the necessary safeguards? That is what service agreements are. That is what ETCA, the Economic and Technological Cooperation Agreement, which I have been one of the most vocal proponents for since about 2004. I have been pilloried and accused of various things, but I keep saying because this is something our country needs. And the last time I came here, I think I talked about trade agreements. Am I right? Yes, I spoke in this very room about trade agreements. And now we have finally one services agreement in this country with Singapore. And suddenly I find that this has also become controversial. Now Singapore agreement does provide safeguards for investment, what we call mode 3 trade. Right? I can explain mode 3 if somebody wants. But it basically provides legal safeguards to companies investing in service activities. But mode 4 is about the movement of natural persons. Right? Movement of natural persons. Now in the Singapore agreement we have said mode 4 is not open. We are bound. We have only allowed something called intra-corporate transferees in 3 categories. Intra-corporate transferees in 3 categories means that the person who's coming here should have been working in the company, let's take Pearson's or Virtusa, should have been working in Pearson somewhere else, in Singapore in this case, for 12 months at least. Must be a national of Singapore or a permanent resident of Singapore. And that person must be in the category of either manager, executive or expert. These are all legal definitions that are provided. They must fall within these categories. Then they will be given permission to come. But if they are ordinary workers, if they are in a sector that is not mentioned in the agreement specifically, they cannot come. Right? They can come under the normal rules, which is highly discretionary. That is, you go, you apply to the Controller of Immigration. Controller of Immigration says, get a letter from a secretary of the appropriate ministry. You go to that ministry, you wait for a long time to get that letter. In some cases, I don't know, some people say money passes hands and letters are produced and then it is brought to the immigration place and they give a work permit for 1 year. And then when it comes to renewal, the same thing is done again. So that is the situation, and I fear that unless we get over these parochial attitudes, we will not be able to really grow our IT sector either in the northern province or in the whole country, because these are creative industries. We have to put together teams. We have to take skilled people. And if the skilled person is not here, not available, we have to take them from India, from Singapore, from wherever. That is how we do business. I bid for these contracts in my company. And we bid with people from multiple places. So, that, honored colleagues, is my story. I hope I have provided you with some raw material for your thinking, because you must solve the problems of the northern province. What people like we can do is to contribute in some way to that activity. I hope I have done that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.